Hi, everyone. So I'm Alison. I'm going to be talking about just a very small portion of my PhD research. As many of you probably know, ecosystem services assessment, though deeply flawed, is gaining a fair amount of traction in policymaking arenas and environmental management arenas. And unfortunately, ecosystem services assessment does a really good job with only a couple of things, biophysical assessment and monetary valuation, and doesn't do a great job with the kinds of sociocultural values that are really important to underlying a lot of place-based cultures, including the culture of the Kanaka Maoli in Hawaii. Those are native Hawaiian people who I've been working with in Hawaii. And they also, sociocultural values are also potentially really important for our underlying motivations to protect the environment. So not accounting for these things and how we're protecting the environment is really, really critical. I did some work in Hawaii as part of a larger project asking this question: how do perceptions of coral reef value differ in terms of ecosystem services categories? And I'm going to talk today about specifically cultural ecosystem services, so those sociocultural non-material values between user groups in West Hawaii. And I've been working on this with NOAA as well as the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. So I asked about 350 people on beaches this question, or roughly this question: what do coral reefs mean to you? And I got answers that some of them looked kind of like this. I would say coral reef is like, as an islander, it's like a part of our family, you know? It's like, yeah, it's like a part of our family, coral reefs. And I took these answers and sorted them into different cultural ecosystem services and relational values categories. So for example, this one would have been kinship, and I did that with all of the different answers that I got. I'm ultimately going to be doing a cluster analysis, which will be a little bit more nuanced, but I was really interested in seeing if these things, sort of at a broad picture, if there were any differences that were just coming out if I actually counted the answers and the different groups that those were aligning with. And the groups I was most interested in looking at were ones that are relevant for the post-colonial context and the racial power dynamics in Hawaii. So looking at tourists, looking at native Hawaiian people, and then non-native local Hawaiians. So this is what I got in terms of the different responses, and this is a lot of information. These are the different cultural ecosystem services and relational values categories that I looked at, and I'll just break down two of the main patterns. So this is one. You can see that tourists value aesthetics and recreation a lot more than native Hawaiians do, and non-native Hawaiian locals also really value recreation. This is important because these are the things that are most easily studied and most often already incorporated into management plans. So these are the kinds of things people are already thinking about. On the inverse, things like heritage, identity, stewardship, these kinds of values that are much harder to measure and that are much less often incorporated into management are the kinds of things that tend to be more important for native Hawaiian respondents, and then also often for people who live in Hawaii who are not native Hawaiian. And that's because there's a lot of native Hawaiians. The culture is pretty dominant there, and so people who live there start to incorporate some of those kinds of values into the way that they're thinking about the land. So what I'm doing is I'm working with NOAA and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and a small team to try and figure out how can we better incorporate these kinds of values that are really important for the culture in Hawaii and also important for our sort of underlying motivations and relationship with the environment to better protect and better manage shoreline ecosystems so that these kinds of things are being cared for and not just the kinds of values that are important to visitors.